So what does this have to do with Two-Spirit? And this is where it gets really exciting. As you may know, not all nations had more than 2 genders of Turtle Island. Some nations had 3 genders, some had 4, 5, and some even had 6 different genders. The concept, the term, as well as the tradition of Two-Spirit challenges the Western colonial binary gender system that was imposed upon us as Indigenous people of Turtle Island, resulting in the displacement and the forcing of Two-Spirit people from our nations, our people, our lands, and ways. Unlike the broader LGBT and queer movement, this is not theoretical, nor it is hypothetical. It is, and nor are we asking for anything anew as Two-Spirit community organizers. Two-Spirit is rooted within a lived experience and a history that predates these Western ways of being. Combine this with the big drum and the mother of all of the driving and thriving bass line. The big drum is the heartbeat of our great mother, is what I've been told over and over from our elders. And how our great mother, is the sustainer of all life. That sound from the big drum connects the sacred space between all of us, but also within all of us, and where we become one. Additionally, if we look at our languages, we find that many of our languages are gender neutral and thereby gender inclusive. And Tribe Called Red is another perfect example of this, of using our language, but also using that big drum. And so it is within chill music that is gender inclusive, that is about the bass line, that harkens and calls me as of the big drum. And how that music kind of can unify us, but also the way in which that the language is structured within each of the songs, in which that we can see ourselves irrespective, and a calling forth and defining and playing with that relationship, irrespective of the sex or gender of who you find attractive or not attractive. And I think within that, it opens up the possibility, and for us as Two-Spirit community organizers, as activists, as community members, to see ourselves within that music genre. Now, there are some limitations to chill as well as the current landscape within music and dance music. And a recent study documented how women, specific non-Indigenous, but just women generally, and so it's an honor to sit here with DJ Osho as well as Norine and other performers, of how accessing technology requires an incredible amount of resources. And so that often that is a barrier, and it inhibits our women partaking in the electronic dance music industry. And what holds true for that community also holds true for Indigenous and Two-Spirit community members. But I also remind you, we all have hand drums, and we can easily access hand drums. And so irrespective of technology or access technology is there, we always can have our hand drums. Also, with what Jeremy, as well as Tribe Called Red, as well as other performers, is within our own languages. And so there's barriers of accessing our language and the reconnecting to our culture, our people, our ways, and specifically our languages to participate. And I believe this is where the 14th recommendation from the Truth and Reconciliation should come into play. But finally, I think the other limitation is there needs to be a market, and we are that market, in which that we need fans, we need supporters, and we need people to buy the music. For the Two-Spirit community, although I really don't see a lot of dance music right now that is specifically targeted to the Two-Spirit community, the frame of chill music, the way it is instructed, is it is not a barrier for me to engage with that music. And yes, to go to the dance floor. Yes, to have those songs that speak to my hips.
I've released 10 albums. My latest is called Gone to the Spirits. It came out last year, and that's really the album I'm going to be talking about and the process for that one, how that came to be. In my early work, I tended to write in very universal terms. I always loved music when I was growing up, as you were talking about in your talk, about that we're not gender specific, that we're you and me, and that I could put my own dream to the word. So that was always important to me. So I've usually taken a point of view of a universal language. That said, I just wanted to add on to some of the people that Russell was speaking of, that in addition to electronica music, for me, growing up in the late 70s, there was a band, Rough Trade, with Carol Pope, who had a song called High School Confidential, and I totally identified with that song as a teenage girl when she was talking about a crush on another girl, and I thought, oh, there's someone like me out there in the world, so that was very liberating. As well, I went to Toronto in 1980. There was another artist who was punk rock, and her name was Jane County, and it used to be Wayne County. And she had an album called Man Enough to Be a Woman. And it was very, very explicit, but very powerful. She was probably the first transgender person that I was aware of. So she was very, again, mind-opening for me and part of my music. It started 20 years ago. A friend of mine, Eldon, was doing his master's in archaeology. He kept coming across this woman called Gone to the Spirits. She was called Gwen Standing Lodgepole Woman, Kokom Napaka, Man Like Woman. She had all these names, but she was appearing in all these different journals. And he told me about her, and her story was just was astounding to me. And he said to me, Norine, you should write a song about her. And I thought, wow. Yeah, I think she's worthy of a whole album. So I was researching this story over 20 years, talking to people, going to archives. I went to the Ktunaxa Nation. I talked to the archivist there, to an elder there. Basically, her story, which I'm going to tell you a little bit about, is done in a concept album format. So this is this album, and it's intended to be listened to in one sitting. So you sit on and you chill. So it's really a kind of, you sit back, you let the music take you on a journey. That was my intention for this. She is a Two-Spirit woman. She was born in the Creston Cranbrook area 200 years ago. And in her late teens, David Thompson, the explorer who mapped a lot of Western Canada, traveled down the Columbia River, and they came into contact with the Ktunaxa and were helped by them and were welcomed by them. David Thompson had an employee by the name of Augustus Bozaverd, who fell in love with Gone to the Spirits, who at that time was known as the One Standing Lodgepole Woman. And they married, and she left her people and went to live with these European people for a winter at a winter camp. Now the story goes that she was not monogamous and she was not faithful. And this, I guess, the puritanical David Thompson was not impressed by this and encouraged her husband to divorce her. And so he did. And so she went back to her people, and my take is I think she was probably humiliated and hurt and betrayed, perhaps. And when she returns to her people, she says, I'm no longer one standing lodgepole woman. I have been transformed. I am now gone to the spirits. And she lived the rest of her life as a male. She had wives. She was a chief. She was an oracle. She was a prophet. She was a chief. She was a very wealthy person. She amassed a great wealth. The currency at the time was horses. She had 26 horses, and she was like this amazing mystical person who appeared in so many journals that people were still talking about her. Hundreds of years later, we're talking about her now, for example. So in the rest of her stories, you have to get the elements to learn about all. Little plug there. But she had two transformations. One was into manhood, or to identify. For me, she was so inspiring because she lived her truth. She was who she was, and she was going to follow her own path. She was going to be who she was fully. And so that was her first transformation, as I see it. And then her second transformation was part of her legend, which really had people talking hundreds of years later, was the Ktunaxa and the Blackfeet are long-standing. We're long-standing enemies, and they historically went to battle. And she died in battle, fighting the Blackfoot. Eldon Yellowhorn, by the way, is Blackfoot. So he was really interesting to hear his take on how this happened. But they fought all day. The legend goes they fought all day, and the Blackfeet kept cutting her, but apparently to the legend her wounds kept healing. So it took all day for them to kill her. And they left her there. And so a few weeks went by when the Tinal came back to get her body, to bring her home to bury her. And they were astounded because her body had not been defiled. It was left untouched. It was pristine. And so they were aghast because they said, oh, Aunt of the Spirits is who she said she is. She is this great spiritual being. And so even 100 years later, the anthropologists who were going through the territory, researching and documenting, they were still talking about her. And we're still talking about her now. So that, you know, for me, as a two-spirit person, as someone who identifies as queer and lesbian, she really walked with me for 20 years.
I'm half Squamish and half African American. My mother is from the Squamish Nation, and my dad is from Gary, Indiana. So I kind of dabble in a lot of different communities in Vancouver, including the Two-Spirit community. Does everyone know what Two-Spirit is? So my version of being Two-Spirit is that there's a masculine Norine and there's a feminine Norine. So spirits that live inside of me, and they conflict with each other quite a bit. So to me, that's what two-spirited means. You're from two spirits. So I can kind of live in both worlds. But because of my mixed heritage, I live in about 5, which is a lot of fun. It's different. And my journey started about 5 years ago when I started my DJing business. So I would say I know more about my native side because I live it every day. I live on the reserve in North Vancouver. And one of the things I want to help do is create more DJs because Harlan mentioned a tribe called Red. They've basically started a new genre. And you know, a lot of people ask me if I'm going to start like remixing our traditional songs and things like that. And that's something that's in the works for sure. And you know, I just want to be a role model for people, especially young Aboriginal people, that there is space for us in this industry. Because it is a lot of fun. It's a lot of hard work, kind of. You feel like you're screaming for a chance when you start. And I'm finally, 5 years later, I'm finally getting those chances. One of the main reasons why I do what I do is there's not that many Aboriginal people or Black people in the mainstream that these young people can look up to, you know? That's what drives me. Like every day, I want to be out there, you know, on television. I want these young people to see somebody that looks like them, because I know what that's like to be young and look on the television, you know, and listen to music. And I was like, I can't relate to this because they don't look like me, you know. And I think things are changing so much, even with just the Oscars, like the movies that are coming out. Like, I don't know if you've seen Hidden Figures or Moonlight. These are amazing movies about stories that have never been told, right? And we've got so many young people coming up, like in the film industry, musicians. Like this is an amazing time right now. So if this is something that you would like to do, I would definitely say to do it now, because everything is changing so much, and it's amazing to see our stories being told finally. So that was a bit about me. So if anybody wants to come, I'm doing a workshop next door, and I'll teach you the basics of DJing, and then you get to try out the equipment.
Cool.
I don't use colonizing frameworks like lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer. In my introduction, when I said, I said hello in Cree, I said did my acknowledgement, but I also said, I ended with Niha, I am a Yahweh. I am two-spirit. And within our own languages, we have these words for our two-spirit people. And so, unlike the broader LGBT community that is asking for new rights, new privileges, or an expansion of new rights and new privileges, for us within, and what I do in my work, is I'm not asking for anything new. I'm calling and looking for this reclaiming, this reawakening, and a calling home of our two-spirit people, where this is our role, our purpose, that was erased and taken from us as a result of colonization. And so as a result of that, so many people that come to the trainings go, I thought I was coming to a gay training, and I came to an Indian training. And because it is asserting and centering our indigeneity. And it is also within that centering of our indigeneity is that we are also taking a decolonizing framework, pushing back against the binary, pushing back against English, pushing back against what has been forced upon us by the residential boarding school, by the 60s scoop, and what is going on right now.